So, you are new to World of Tanks and you really want to know what lines to stay away from if you want an easy time on the battlefield. Or you're a more experienced player and playing World of Tanks normally is just too easy for you and you are really looking for a real challenge. Or you're just wondering how trash a line in World of Tanks can actually be. Well, if you can relate to any of those three cases, then you have clicked on the right video, because in today's top 5 video, we're gonna be counting down the top 5 worst lines to grind in World of Tanks. And just like the previous video, I did similar to this video, which was the top 5 best lines to grind. Links in the description. The order of this list will be determined by 3 main categories, which are difficulty, which simply means how difficult it is to play the tanks in the line on a scale from 1 to 10. Reward, which simply means how rewarding the tanks in the line are, with as the main focus the tier 10 vehicle of course, on a scale from 1 to 10. And at last, and also probably the most important one, is of course the rage factor, which tells you how frustrating it can be to play the tanks in the designated line, again on a scale from 1 to 10. And also guys, before we're gonna start counting down this list, I first have to mention that this list is mainly based on my personal opinion and my personal experience with grinding these lines, so please don't crucify me in the comment section for forgetting a tank that you would have picked. So now with all that out of the way, let's jump straight into the list. So, to kick things off at the number 5 position on this list, we have the IS4 line. So, with the IS4 alone being as underwhelming as it currently is, obviously because of all the fancy, newer and better Russian heavy tanks we recently got, I'm looking at you, Object 705A, it really isn't worth going for it nowadays in my opinion, simply because of the fact that the Russian tech tree offers way better tier 10 heavies now. But that is not all, because in order to get the IS4, you have to go through a pretty painful grind as well. Fair enough, the KV1 and the T150 and the ST1 are pretty decent for their tier, but it is mainly the KV3 and the KV4 who are quite underwhelming, since they might have thick armor, but that armor is pretty much useless since it's not angled at all, making it very easy for equal and even some lower tiered opponents to do damage to you. And the fact that those tanks are also quite slow as well also doesn't really help. And this might not come as a surprise, but the gun choice is pretty terrible as well, so therefore the KV3 and 4 are, especially in their stock state, pretty terrible. But on the other hand, they are in fact pretty easy to play, since there is not much to it except learning some basic angling tactics, so therefore this line gets a 5 out of 10 for difficulty. And with the IS4 being very underwhelming for a tier 10 tank, and considering the only bright spots in this line are the KV1, the T150 and the STI, or ST1 for some of you, I do have to give this line a pretty poor 5 out of 10 for reward. But at least there is something a little positive about this line, and that is the fact that it only gets a 6 out of 10 for the rage factor. Fair enough, they are slow and lack good armor angling, but they are nowhere near as stressful to play as, for example, the number 4 spot on this list, which we are heading towards now. So then, moving on to the number 4 spot on this list, where we have the Badger line. So if you take a look at the UK tech tree, you immediately see that in order to get to the Badger, you can take 2 routes. With the first route being the most obvious one, starting from the UC2 all the way up to the Badger of course. Or if you really want to punch yourself in the nuts every time you click the battle button, you can also start the grind from the medium 2 to the Churchill gun cap. I'm sorry, just a little vomit came out there, excuse me. To the 87 and eventually to the Badger. So guys, let me just give you one advice. If you want to punish yourself already by grinding this line, please do yourself a favor and simply start from the TD line from the beginning, since the Churchill 1 and the Churchill gun carry again, I'm sorry, are literally the worst. But that doesn't take away the fact that the regular British heavily armored TD line is easy doable, since even though a difficulty score of a 4 out of 10 might not seem so bad after all, since at especially the 85 at tier 5, you only have to press the W key and click a couple of times and you'll leave the battle with 1k damage easily. But once you start to move up to the 87, 8 and 15, it gets worse and worse, since your speed doesn't get any better and your tier 4 tier tier armor strength also doesn't really get any better up until the Badger. But hey, at least your guns do get marginally better the more you move up the tier. But is it worth all the other sacrifices you have to make? No, definitely not. Therefore, this line gets a 7 out of 10 for reward, since the Tortoise and the 85 and the Badger are pretty decent for their tier, but everything in between is just straight out terrible, which results into a rage factor of a 9 out of 10, and that is solely based on the line's immense lack of speed, since at 20 km/h top speed is indeed incredibly frustrating. So overall, the Badger line is mainly because of that 20 km/h top speed, with some other bad aspects a very frustrating line to grind, with the Badger at the end still being a good tank in my opinion, but definitely not worth the struggle. So therefore, the Badger line claims the worthy number 4 spot on this list. So then, moving on to the number 3 spot on this list, where we pretty much have the forgotten one, and of course it's no other than the 121. So when I say forgotten one, most of you will probably understand me well, but for the people who have no clue what I'm talking about, well, pretty much since the release of the Object 430U, the 121 became pretty obsolete, since its Russian counterpart performed pretty much better in every single aspect. Therefore, since the release of the Object 430U, everyone pretty much forgot about the 121. Because why would you play a tank with the same purpose and overall worse stats than the Russian one, right? And of course, that was not all, because the line leading towards the Object 430U is also way more forgiving than the line that leads up to the 121, since pretty much every tank in the 121 line is pretty much underwhelming for its tier, with the tier 5 to 8 just being a worse version of their Russian copy, and the tier 9 and 10 being pretty useless as well because of their clumsy gun handling and very poor gun depression. But overall, since the 121 line is just the worst copy of the 430U line, therefore the difficulty also is about the same, with a 6 out of 10 for difficulty, since you're still dealing with medium tank playstyle, but it's a bit more forgiving because of how well armored the tanks are for being mediums. But now, just to come back to the 121 itself, as I said, it sadly has become pretty obsolete right now, and if you combine that with the below average tier 5 to 9 tanks in the line as well, it results into the line not really being worth it anymore in my opinion. So therefore, I give this line a 3 out of 10 for a reward. But at least the line has one pro, which is that it is, in my opinion, the least stressful line to play, since I find mediums to be very relaxing to play anyways, and the armor and the big guns are quite fun sometimes. So therefore, I give this line a very low rage factor of only a 2 out of 10. But is the number 2 spot on this list so forgiving as well if it comes to frustration? Well, let's find out. Since now we are moving to the number 2 spot on this list, where we have the legendary Shipboard, better known as the FV4005 line. So nowadays, if you want to play the tank with the highest caliber gun that isn't an arty, your only option is to grind this very painful line, where back in the days you also had the option to grind the nowadays Badger line in order to pick yourself up the FV215B183. But since Wargaming replaced the FV183 with the Badger a few patches ago, you nowadays only have one option left, which is grinding this pretty terrible British TD line, which again, just like the Badger line, you can start from 2 different branches, with the first branch being a standard TD branch that ends with the Archer, or you can pick the medium branch with at the end the Sherman Firefly. And from then on, both lines merge into one again if you step up to the Challenger at tier 7. But of course, this means bad news again, otherwise this line wouldn't be on this list. Both the medium as the TD branch are quite shit indeed, with the tanks such as the Achilles, the British M4 Sherman and the Sherman Firefly just being pretty underwhelming for its tiers. And with the Archer just being straight out retarded because of its idiotic flip transmission. Britain, please never pick up any French tactics again, thank you. But anyways, once you reach the Challenger, you think things are gonna get better, right? Well, wrong, since the Challenger doesn't know if it's a medium or a TD, so if you play it like a TD, you fail, and if you play it like a medium, you fail as well. Same story goes for the Charioteer, but at least the Charioteer gets a half-decent tier 10 tank destroyer gun. And at last, the Conway is actually the first pretty decent entry in this line. So overall, for the difficulty, I gave this line an 8 out of 10 because of the low armor and the half medium, half TD playstyle the tanks in this list have. But anyways, after all those struggle, you do at least finally unlock the FV4005. And is it worth it? Well, especially since it's the only 183mm gun currently available in the tech tree right now. And just because of that, I have to give this line an 8 out of 10 for reward, solely because of its uniqueness of the FV4005. But now, the factor where it all comes down to is the rage factor, which I had to give this one a 7 out of 10 for, since it might be somewhat fun to drive around full speed, but the lack of armor, especially on the FV4005's 14mm thick turret, does result into quite a lot of R2 shots and people just spamming HE all over your ass, and that is pretty frustrating, of course. But this frustration is nothing compared to the #1 spot on this list. So here we go, the moment you probably all have been waiting for, the #1 spot on this list, and the worst and most frustrating line you can currently grind in World of Tanks is the Super Conqueror line. Wait, what? Super Conqueror? That thing is probably one of the best tier 10 heavies in hold down gameplay. Yeah, that's right, but the way towards the Conqueror is the most intense pain every World of Tanks player can possibly experience. And all that pain can be formed into one word: churchills. Oh my god, the churchills are so bad that 80% of the players who start their grind with the Conqueror just quit the moment they unlock the Churchill 1. And if not, they freak speed the Churchill 1 and then quit at the Churchill 7, or the real warriors among them freak speed the Churchill 7 as well, and then quit at the Black Prince when they realize that freak XPing the Black Prince is a little too much. And now you might be thinking, well, Churchills can't be that bad. Well, trust me, they are bad beyond your wildest dreams. Well, you know what, let me just show you how an average Churchill game looks like. At first, you load into a battle, you drive for 5 minutes straight to the battlefront, and once you get there, you get devoured in seconds because your armor isn't worth anything and your gun is just laughable to the enemy. But I do have to be fair though, once you manage to struggle your way up until the Carnarvon, it's just a whole relief, since the Carnarvon is still not very good, but it's a massive improvement over the Black Prince, since that 35 km/h top speed is gonna feel like you're driving at light speed after you're just done grinding 3 Churchills. And yeah, once you reach the Conqueror at tier 9 and you unlock the 120mm gun, it's basically a home run from there on. But is it difficult to get there? Well, not really, since the line's playstyle is pretty simple, but they just completely suck at their own playstyle. So yeah, difficulty wise, I have to give this line a 5 out of 10. Not difficult to play at all. And for the reward, as far as the Churchills pull the reward factor into the ground, the Super Conqueror shoots it sky high again. So just thanks to the Conqueror, this line still gets a solid 8 out of 10 for reward. And yeah, the rage factor, I think I have addressed this enough already, simply because of the pure frustrations on the lower tiers. This line gets a massive 10 out of 10 for the rage factor, which is also, not surprisingly, the highest on this list, and also a very nice number to finish off this top 5 video. So guys, that was all for today's top 5 video. So if you enjoyed the video or found it useful, please consider dropping a like. That would be very much appreciated. Also, if you're new to the channel and you like my videos, make sure to smash the subscribe button so you will stay up to date with all my future content. And also, let me know in the comment section down below what your top 5 favorite lines to grind are. I'm very curious on your opinions as well. And at last, if you're looking for a cool Discord community, then make sure to join my Discord server for the best talks and of course the dankest memes. Link in the description. But for now, all that's left for me to say is have an awesome day, and I'll catch you guys later.
Jack it up.